This week on LTC News, highlights from this year's Folk Festival, a summer celebration of New England quilts.
It began in 2015, was the first year we hosted this exhibition, and we continue to have it every other year.
And community policing.
Really is the cornerstone of everything we're trying to do. Public safety. It contributes to the quality of life. It's really central to the quality of life for everybody who lives here in the city, who works here in the city.
All this and much more on this edition of LTC News. Welcome to LTC News. I'm your host, Krista Brown. The 2019 Lowell Folk Festival allows for residents of Lowell and elsewhere to experience some of the best and most diverse music, food, and crafts from around the world. LTC provided live coverage of the event and brings you these highlights.
Talking about the story of life and how things were going. Seemed like everything was broken. We had no water in our house. And when
What's your favorite part of the festival?
Well, I have to be honest. I mean, the music's great, but the ethnic food is
That's what I said.
That's the draw.
Awesome.
You know, it's just where else can you get so many varieties of true ethnic food?
Yeah.
Home cooked, variety.
Your love is like a lion concussion. You came to me, darling, knock me off my feet.
I had a plate of Filipino sisig, which I'd never had before, and I'm watching a Greek Rabbinico band, which is a style of music I'd never listened to before. And I'm like eating Filipino food and watching Greek music, and then there's this multicultural group of people that are just doing the Hopa dance around at Market Street Stage in the park. So everyone's having fun and getting together, and these people were probably strangers when they walked in. And then you get to see them just having fun together.
For an extended look at this year's Lowell Folk Festival, tune in to Channel 8. A schedule of programming can be found on ltc.org. The Lowell Philharmonic Orchestra has been bringing classical music to Lowell since 1987 and is ready to begin a new chapter with its new music director and conductor, Thomas Kociela. Mr. Casillas sat down with us to explain the ins and outs of conducting a community orchestra and the changes he looks forward to bringing to the LPO.
Hi, I'm Thomas Kociela, and I'm the newly appointed music director of the Lowell Philharmonic Orchestra. So the thing about conducting, I was involved in I've been involved for many years, and now it's become the one thing that I do. I am a conductor now, but I have been conducting for a while. What I love doing is creating synergy. I love getting people to work together. And it's not so much the way I want it to go as them working together and creating something better than they could create on their own. And of course, I have an opinion on how I'd like the thing to go. But very much, I love it when people start working together, and that's what the great orchestras do. Yeah, I'm very much looking to connect with the audience and have a partnership with the audience. And what does that mean? Well, I'm not hiding at the concert. When you come to the concert, I'm probably greeting you at the door. I'm not getting ready. I'm ready to go. I'm talking to you. And then at the intermission, I love to see what people are thinking. At Shed Park, I did an audience survey, and I'm just really curious, what do people like? What do they not like? What would they like to hear? What format would they like? People love classical music. There's pieces they want to hear. They would show up tomorrow to hear these pieces. The audience really, everyone seems to want context. I've actually been corresponding with some people who gave me email addresses and things, and they're open to anything. They just want to know what it's about, and they don't necessarily want to read the program notes. So here's my baton. Now you can imagine the kind of sound you might get with these different preps here. So if I do this, might be very sharp. If I do this, ba, ba, you can get a smoother sound and everything in between. The conductor surely is setting the tempo and kind of keeping the beat, keeping the pulse, keeping the tempo, and that's just something like and almost doing nothing allows you to do something. I'm really excited. November 10th, it's a Sunday. We're at McCarthy Middle School in Chelmsford. And it's basically a guide to the symphony, but it's called Symphonic Adventures. And I'm going to be the guide for the audience and kind of describe what a symphony is, why these four movements exist, and why this format is the way it is. Why is it overture, and then we bring out a soloist to play a solo? We have a break, and then we have a symphony. For December, I'm working on partnerships with some choirs right now. So we'll have a sing-along, we'll have some fun holiday music, kind of thing everybody loves to hear at holiday time, maybe some night before Christmas. 'Twas the night before Christmas. And then when we get into March, we're going to partner with Illumination Opera. There are 8 solo opera singers in Chelmsford, and it's going to be a family-friendly program of opera music. So we're just working it out. I'm new here. We're still finding common ground and finding groups to work with. And then it'll be just a big Pops concert, American Pops music when we get to May. And then of course we'll have Shed Park near the 4th of July.
For a full listing of upcoming performances, visit their website at lowellphilharmonic.org. August is Textile Month in Lowell, and 7 local museums and galleries are exhibiting fabric or fabric-related art. Nora Birchfield, Executive Director of the New England Quilt Museum, is coordinating this biennial festival of quilts and fabric art.
On August 7th, we open with Summer Celebration of New England Quilts. It began in 2015, was the first year we hosted this exhibition, and we continue to have it every other year. So there's a very diverse variety of quilts in terms of the style, the subject matter, the colors. All of the guilds are very different in what they focus on as members. Some are art quilters, others are more traditional quilters. Some focus heavily on handwork. We're fortunate to have a lot of the partners in art galleries here in downtown Lowell participating. The Whistler House Museum of Art has a quilt exhibition, the Brush Gallery, the All Gallery, Ayers Loft Gallery, a lot of the independent art galleries in town. LTC is also hosting some wonderful art quilts in their space. And the National Park Service is doing a family drop-in activity here at the New England Quilt Museum as well. So everybody is involved.
Welcome to the All Gallery. We're here to show you our newest exhibit, which is called Fabrications of Imagination. One of the rules for this show was it had to be textile or textile related, but it had to be three-dimensional as well. So we have a ceramic piece by Deb Ames, who's a local artist, that has texture like fabric. And we have other things that sort of play with the idea of just what is fabric, which is why we called the show Fabrications.
Well, our exhibit is quilt portraits. We've got personality. And we have portraits of animals, family members, and friends, and some self-portraits. The nice thing about the quilters is that they come from all over the United States. When they hear calls for entry, we get them from around here, of course, many from Massachusetts and New England, but also some from California and other, Texas, Florida. One of my favorites is Connected, and that features a guy on his telephone. And it's kind of odd to see a guy on a quilt because usually you see women on quilts. Mostly quilters are women. Many of the quilters will come and do the whole circuit. If everyone's open, they'll check out as many galleries as possible. So we get to share an audience.
This grew out of the Lowell Quilt Festival, which had a 25, 30-year history here in town in every August. And when the Quilt Festival was retired, we were looking for some new and interesting way to continue to engage our quilt audience in all the cultural life of Lowell.
For exhibit information about all the participating galleries, visit neqm.org. Community policing is a strategy that focuses on building personal connections with members of their community. The Lowell Police Department is taking steps to enhance their practice of community policing. On July 26th, city officials cut the ribbon on the new downtown precinct.
We want to be visible. We want to be approachable, and that's what I know we're going to be doing down here. We've already received a lot of compliments. We've implemented people in strategic locations during different times of the day, and it's been very, very positive. And I owe the credit to Captain Tom Kennedy and my two deputies, Dan LaRocque and Barry Goldner, who have led the charge on this deployment of officers in the downtown area.
We are opening it because here in Lowell, the nature of policing is different. There is no place in this county where our relationships are stronger with our police department, with our fire department, and more importantly, no place where those strong bonds and relationships have more changed people's lives.
Oh, well, I'm really pleased that the city manager and the chief of police worked with Eastern Bank to establish this precinct. I'll tell you one thing, what we've learned from our neighborhood substations, they've been well accepted in all neighborhoods for the simple reason it's established better communication between the citizens of the city or the people in the various neighborhoods and the police. It's a positive relationship. And now when we have the neighborhood meetings and the police come to make the reports as to, car break-ins, home and, robberies in the house, but what they've done to solve the problem, there's a far better relationship in the neighborhoods now with the police. There's a connection with the Lowell Police Department. And we've needed this in the downtown, because the downtown, people will talk about, is it safe to be in downtown? Of course it is. But as I said in my opening remarks, when people people have to understand cities have certain type of problems. They deal with certain type of issues. We're not a country area, a small town where everybody knows everybody.
Community policing, as I have said many times, it really is the cornerstone of everything we're trying to do. Public safety. It contributes to the quality of life. It's really central to the quality of life for everybody who lives here in the city, who works here in the city. And I don't think we can, underestimate the impact of it. And so to have a true community policing commitment and presence makes all the difference in the world. Just lip service or words just don't cut it. And what we've seen with the chief and his administration is that there is a real commitment to this. I hear it all the time from the neighborhoods, from people who live here, that they have really appreciated the interaction and the presence of the police right out in the streets where they are and where they live. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. And I also think it benefits our police department, who work very hard, and they get the support of the community. They have their backs, and I think that's important. That's not true in every community across the country, but I think we take great pride in how much the community appreciates the police, and now that they're getting to know them even better, that's a great thing.
Now, when you talk about community policing, I mean, it first started with Ed Davis. We've always had it, but the thing is, the city manager now and the present police chief are really going back to what originally was started regarding community policing. And it's a real program. And when I say by a real program, community policing really is about the police and the community working together. I did cite when I was in the introduction that there are communities all over the country where they have major problems. And the major problems are caused because there's a breakdown in communication between the police and the citizens of the community. So if something happens, people get angry and they try to solve the problem then. This is not what we're doing. This is a positive, this is a proactive, not a reactive step that we're doing down here. So this, it's just a sign that, the people who are assigned to protect you are out there, they're close to you, you now will have the ability to simply walk into this precinct to say, I have an issue. I'm a business person. I feel because after certain hours, certain things change. What can you do to help us? So the police get more information, the citizens get more information, but we work together. That's what community policing is about.
The new precinct is located in the Eastern Bank Building at 50 Central Street in downtown Lowell and is open 24 hours a day. In this week's Sunspot, Lowell Sun Enterprise editor Chris Scott sits down with Lowell's new superintendent, Dr. Joel Boyd.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Scott, the Enterprise editor at The Sun. Thank you for tuning into this 98th edition of Sunspot. With us is the new Lowell School Superintendent, Joel Boyd. It's his first appearance on the show. Hopefully it will be his first of many. Joel, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. And I want to thank your staff, particularly Latifah Phillips, for getting this together. We had to, I understand, do a little bit of scheduling.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that. So I want to start off by asking you this question. Before you were hired, the school committee went through a very acrimonious period over the former superintendent, Salah Kalfawi. And there were 4 votes to get rid of him, 3 votes to keep him. But yet the school committee unified to hire you. And those 7 people came together, which I still think was quite amazing. So what do you think it is in your resume or in your pedigree that you were able to bring all 7 members of the school committee together to back you for the new superintendent?
Yeah, so I can't really speak to anything prior.
I'm not asking you to.
And what I found is that they've been rather unified on most things going forward. Each time I talk to any one member of our school committee, their interests are clear, and that's in supporting our city as a whole and supporting the growth and learning environment of our young people. We certainly have a child-centered and a child-focused school committee, and I'm really honored to work with them. And so I found that they've been unified and consistent in their message that every one of our children in our public schools deserves to go to the very best school in the state, and they're committed to bringing about some needed and deserved improvement in our schools for all of our kids.
All right, we'll get to that, but I want to ask you again, what was it in your resume? What do you think that you showed them that impressed them to get a unanimous vote to hire you?
I think you'd have to ask them that question.
No, I'm asking you, what do you think your strongest attribute is? What do you think your strong point is?
Oh, okay, that's a different way to word it. That's a different way to say it.
I could be like a lawyer.
That's a different way to say it. I think what I like to believe that what I bring is a child-centered and child-focused approach to the superintendency that places teaching and learning at the core of our work. I say there's kind of some core beliefs that I bring to the work that drive everything that I do, and I believe those beliefs carry through every message I give, every answer I give, and just summarize those. Maybe that helps answer your question.
Please do. Yeah.
Sure.
What are those core beliefs?
Yeah. So I believe that a high-quality education is a fundamental civil right of every child in our schools. We often talk about education as being a privilege and going to school as being a privilege. It's certainly a privilege, but it's a civil right for our children as well. And the difference is a privilege is something that's nice to have. A civil right is something that cannot be denied. And we determine whether we're meeting that right of our children by the quality and outcomes that our children are achieving. And so that's the first, I would say. I also believe that teaching and learning are at the core of our work. So everything we do in the school district needs to be in service of what happens in the classroom. I believe that parents are our partners. I believe that parents are our children's first and best teachers in the home. I don't believe that there's a silver bullet to improving our schools. I think it's going to take hard and steady work over time. And I believe that the success of our children is the responsibility of every adult in our system. I think that it's the responsibility of our entire community to bring about improvement in our schools. So everything that I say, everything that I do connects back to those beliefs. So I would imagine that those beliefs resonated with people throughout the community. And throughout the community, I'm sure there was feedback given to our school committee members as representatives of the community.
Since you've been in Lowell, what have you seen that has impressed you the most? And you mentioned earlier about need for improvement. That can be the follow-up question. What needs your attention to improve?
Yeah, so I think what's impressed me most is the commitment, the engagement of the entire team and the entire community around the needs of our schools. I've met with a lot of people over the course of the past month since starting officially and even before that, and every single one of our staff members who are working in our public schools are working extremely hard in a really cost-constrained environment that has left resources rather depleted. People working beyond 8 hours, beyond 10 hours, beyond the confines of their job descriptions to support our young people. I've met with countless people throughout the community who have raised their hand to say, how can we support? How can we be a part of a process for bringing about improvement for our young people? And that question of improvement I frame as this, that we have a lot of kids in the city of Lowell who are achieving at really high levels. Our schools are bringing about incredible results for a good many of our young people, but not all. Many of our students are not achieving at those same levels, and in our city, which is a relatively small city, students could be going to a middle school on one side of our city that's among the highest performing in the state, and just a short ways away, maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles away, students could be going to a school that's among the lowest performing in the state. That disparity in performance often within our community follows lines of race, of linguistic background, and income.
And you've seen that here in the short time you've been here.
We can see that in the data. We can see that in the experiences that are shared. I hear that in the stories that are told. I hear that in the challenges that our staff members are sharing about what they need to do next. So that disparity in performance, those gaps in opportunities, that's the area where I think, where I know this community is rallying around improvement. And that's an opportunity when there's a community that's together, understanding that the diversity of this community is truly its richest asset, and how do we leverage that diversity to bring about model education in a community.
You mentioned earlier about depleted assets and people doing more than one job.
Depleted resources.
Depleted resources and people working beyond 8 hours. That is one issue that the previous administration had to deal with, and we've done quite a few stories at the Sun about that. Heading into the new school year, how would you assess the financial situation of the school department as we sit here today?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate that we hired in, and I inherited a great chief financial officer in Billy Jo Turner, who's done some extraordinary work to assess the financial well-being of the system prior to me getting here.
She's going to stay a member of your team?
She is, she is. And she and her team in our financial office have done some great work to right-size the district's finances. Now we've found ourselves in a situation where the state has increased its allocation to the school district. So we can look back historically through those cuts that have been made. The cuts that have been made due to some underfunding, due to some cost constraints, and we can go through those cuts, and I'm looking forward to bringing to the school committee next Wednesday an adjustment to our budget, which will take advantage of those increased resources to bring about a rethinking of how we do our work, restoring and realigning those previous cuts so that we can really narrow those gaps in achievement that have been experienced.
Would you describe the financial situation as stable or unstable right now?
Oh, we have a stable financial situation right now.
Is there a deficit?
No, we're not experiencing a deficit, no. By law, the school district has to run a balanced budget, and I will be bringing forward a balanced budget on Wednesday school committee.
On Wednesday evening?
Yes.
Okay. And there'll be no further cuts?
No, we have an increase in state funding.
Okay.
We have an increase in state funding, so we're going to be bringing additions to the budget, not cuts to the budget.
Can you highlight that for us at this point?
No, not yet. It would be premature for me to do so, but I will have a full packet uploaded publicly by end of day Friday, and the full community can see the packet, and then we will be having a full public presentation on Wednesday evening.
On Wednesday evening?
And I'll be looking forward to getting the school committee's feedback on that, and then we'll go from there.
You mentioned Billy Jo Turner, the chief financial officer. You've also hired Letitia Phillips. Latifa. And Jim Hall. He's a holdover from the previous administration. There was another fellow there as well. Tell us about those hirings and how they're improving your administration.
Sure. Jim Hall was not a holdover. He was a contracted attorney. So he was not an employee of the school district. He was on contract as an attorney. So we're excited he chose to leave the law firm where he was a partner to join the public schools full-time. Dr. Linus Guillory is our chief schools officer. Previously Deputy Superintendent of Teaching and Learning in Rochester, formerly worked at NASA. Ms. Phillips that you mentioned, previously a State Director of Native American Education for the state of Washington. Robin Desmond is our Chief Academic Officer, high-performing principal, Lowellian through and through, and Billy Jo Turner is our Chief Financial Officer.
Okay. Fair enough. We only have about a minute or two left. Just talk a little bit about the upcoming school year and what the city can look for from the school department as that begins.
Yeah, so we're working right now to our ramp up to day one. I think the first day of school is a momentous occasion for families, for children, really making sure that that's an exciting time for all of our kids. We're looking forward to the next couple of weeks of ramping up to that first day. It's going to be a great first day, and this school year we're looking forward to some real exciting work in our classrooms. I'm looking forward to being in our schools, being in our classrooms, meeting our kids.
I wanted to ask you that. Are you a superintendent that gets out and visits schools?
Absolutely. I believe that's the core work of the superintendent. So how I define the superintendent, I define the superintendency as being a teacher first. And I was a teacher, I was a principal, and that experience as a teacher and a principal kind of drives how I view the work of superintendent. I'll be in schools, I'll be in classrooms quite often.
Very good. Well, Joel, I want to thank you for coming in today. The 15 minutes went fast, and we'll have you back again soon.
All right.
Thank you for coming in.
It, man.
Thank you for tuning in to this latest edition of Sunspot, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another guest. Good evening, everyone.
And that's all for this edition of LTC News. You can find us on LTC channels 8, 95, and 99, online at ltc.org, on Roku in the LTC News playlist, or on Facebook at LTC Lowell. We leave you now with more highlights of the Lowell Folk Festival. I'm your host, Krista Brown. Thanks for joining us.